and welcome to Pitching In, the story podcast that explores the difference between taste and expertise. I'm Christian Barrett, and this week we have part 2 of our Uncle Buck episode in which we pitch. So without further ado, let me get to Uncle Buck II. The buck stops here. Sorry about that.
We are in amongst,
We're in Ryan's
Star Wars royalty.
den of awesome.
Don't say it like it's den. They'll think it's something off 50 Shades. It's not that at all. It's basically
It's
a
a
nerd
cave.
cave.
Yeah, nerd
I'm happy
cave.
to use the term nerd cave.
There are, thousands?
Well,
He has an army. He has an army, a Star Wars army, that's for
Figurines
sure.
all around
Yes.
us, guys. So
And they
we're in
look ready to fight, which is really cool.
Yeah,
They
they're
look
all
prepared,
geared
like,
up.
like they've just been called.
We've got little
And they're ready to serve.
installations.
Still looking for an Uncle
I like
Buck
this
figure.
guy.
Yeah.
He's a cool alien with like a shark fin
I'll
head.
put some photos on the
Oh yeah.
Well,
The
it's,
Facebook
the
page.
room's half pulled down, so it's a
Oh,
shame.
that's
That's
some
okay.
close-ups.
Okay, you can steal some
cool characters. You
If you don't mind.
It's all
Or is
copyright.
that-
Look, everyone
What's
knows. I
this
don't
guy?
care.
What's this kind of creature called?
That is from Star Wars. That's a dewback.
A dewback. I
From,
like those guys.
A
They
New
got
Hope.
big frog.
There you go.
Iguana mouths.
All my friends out there. That's how big a nerd I am. All right.
So-
Okay, so we want to move on to moving on to the next part of the show, which is all about pitching in. So we're going to be pitching our either sequels, reboots, prequels, spin-offs. It's kind of open slather, and this is the section where we pitch our little things. So we are going to try to go as fast as we can.
Yes.
Because we are running short on time.
Constraint.
I am interested to find out how this goes, because I think mine is longer than I thought.
Mine's a page. I think I'm similar. I might be coming from the same angle as you.
Yeah,
Right.
well, I just blew up my words to make it so I can read it for once, because last time I could barely see it on my phone. So hopefully, I can read it. But look, I'll just go first then,
Sure.
because I'm
Sure.
loaded up. So, look, I obviously I'm a fan of the film. I gave it a 10. I was thinking, obviously, the spin-offs I presume were just straight up reboots or remakes
Yeah.
of it, unless there was a
There
sequel.
must have been.
Illegal
It must have been just like ongoing series of.
Maybe the one that was done in the 90s was a follow-on because Powell was in it and he played Powell, so maybe there
Did
was a
he
link.
produce and create it? It
I
sounds like...
have no idea. We'll
For
try and
him
find
to
an
get a-
episode and try and link it to one of our podcast things so people can be appalled as I was from what I remember seeing it. So this is a change for me because I actually did a prequel.
Cool.
Which I
did a prequel too.
Cool, yeah, and I got the idea for the element around the photograph.
So did I.
And Jane
Yeah.
said the same. So it's based around the photo. Which in the back of my mind, when I looked at the script, I thought, well, I don't really want to see what he's done afterwards. I'd like to see why he is disliked by Cindy.
Totally my angle.
And I thought, and why would his photo be folded over in the photo album? So that was the catalyst for my story arc.
Okay.
And I also thought that if we were to make the film now, we could possibly get away with recasting it, just because it could be sort of when they were in their 30s and not their 40s.
The prequel to Dumb and Dumber.
Well, yeah, but also
okay.
you could recast John Candy in his 30s and go, well, that's kind of him and not in his...
Yeah.
And then we could go back in and re-edit the original Uncle Buck and put his photo... No, we wouldn't do that. So basically, mine's just called Buck.
Yeah.
So straight up called Buck. So here we go. So Bob Russell is a downtrodden, nerdy guy who's just met the woman of his dreams, Cindy. Cindy is an uptight, snooty type that hails from a very proper elitist family. It's a whirlwind romance, and Bob proposes to Cindy, and Cindy, taken by his mild-mannered but big-hearted man, says yes. It's a fairy tale. They walk the streets holding hands, have picnics in the park feeding the birds, and respectfully sleep in separate beds. Bob is smitten with his wife-to-be, and Cindy is comfortable in their arrangement thus far. Bob introduces Cindy to his parents, and they love her, and pretty soon wedding plans fall into place. There's only one problem. Buck Russell. Bob's wayward, hard-drinking, loud-talking brother. Bob can't imagine what Cindy would make of this man-mountain, and as history has proven, Buck has this way of making everything go pear-shaped real quick, and so Bob, cornered emotionally, strikes him off the invitation list. He loves his brother deep down, but he can't risk Buck messing everything up again. Moving on, we meet Buck Russell at a racetrack. He's made a major punt on a nag that his mate Larry gave a solid tip about, and he loses big time. In fact, Buck loses all his remaining savings. Adding to that other woes, he owes some big-time gamblers cash all over town who are gunning for him. He returns to his apartment to see that he has an eviction notice pinned to the door, and his on and off again trashy mechanic girlfriend Shanice won't take his calls. He's out on the streets. He's alone. Or is he? Buck has a brother, Bob, a few towns over. Bob's always had his head switched on and done quite well for himself. Perhaps if Buck rolls on over there and hangs out with him for a while, he might be able to get himself back on track. Packing all that he owns, which is very little, inside his car and piling his battered old Dodge, Buck sets off to visit his brother. Arriving in the dead of night and accidentally crashing through Bob's front yard after a handbrake malfunction, Bob is startled awake and sees his brother for the first time in years. His heart sinks. "Bob? Who is that?" Cindy asks from the window. "It's my brother, Buck." Bob replies sheepishly. "You didn't tell me you had a brother," Cindy replies. Buck goes to move his car and it's unmovable. It's also rather unsightly. Buck is taken into the house and introduced to Cindy. She disapproves almost immediately. His conversations, his mannerisms, his uncouth appearance, none of that appeals to her. Her family can't meet this man. Bob says it's all good and that his brother can stay until Friday, one day before the wedding. So let's set the timer. Buck says he just needs a few days and he'll go once his car fixed. But with Buck in the house, Cindy and Bob are forced into the same bed and sexual awkwardness ensues. Here's a layer for you. On the top of what follows is a series of comical clashes with the uptight Cindy and the brash Buck. He washes the red sports Guernsey with all Cindy's whites. He tries to cook a barbecue and sets half the backyard on fire. He breaks the toilet upstairs and all the waste leaks down onto Bob and Cindy's bed while they're sleeping, etc., etc., etc. He's basically a walking disaster. Cindy is on edge and is now starting to be at odds with Bob. Bob starts to niggle his brother. Buck rings up Shanice, who finally takes the call, and he begs her to come look at his car. Shanice arrives and there is immediately more tension in the house. Cindy looks down her nose at this greasy Shanice who smokes and talks like a man. Shanice gets to work on the car and says she can get a part but it'll be there on the morning of the wedding. Cindy is irate. Bob assures her it'll be okay. The two of them have a moment in the room and one thing leads to another. There's another layer for you. Shanice takes a phone call in the house thinking it's about the car part, but I keep looking at Christian because he's just, those layers. Car part, but instead it's a call confirming what a wedding dress is really ready for a collection. Shanice confronts Cindy and asks where the wedding is. She says it'll break Buck's heart if he can't be there. The tension ratchets up even more. With guilt for the first time, Cindy tells Bob he must come clean to Buck, but they just can't be at the wedding. Bob says that he and Buck need to talk and the two of them go out for a drink. Bob explains how important Cindy is to him and that her family are very proper and all about this and all about the upcoming wedding. Hurt, Buck says he'll get the car towed and he and Shanice will be gone first thing. He doesn't want to be any more trouble. But he says if they can't come to the wedding, then this tonight will do. This will be Bob's, Buck's do. Do you like that one? What follows is the night of craziness, strippers, booze, fights, and ends with an arrest. It's the day of the wedding. Bob is freaking out. He gives Buck a spray about why he's no good to have around. He wants to be separate from Buck in a cell. Sorry, Buck talks to the cops and says it's all his fault and that his brother had nothing to do with it. Bob is released. Buck has a huge bond placed on his head. Bob arrives home and is met by Cindy. On his word, a tow truck arrives and is pulling Buck's car out of the driveway. Buck uses his one phone call to arrange this. Shanice asks where Buck is and Bob says he's in jail. She asks Bob if they're going to leave him there and with Cindy watching, he nods. Shanice, disgusted, leaves. With the wedding underway, Cindy is all in white. Bob is very distraught. The family all arrive for the big day. Buck sits in his cell talking to himself about how he fucked up again. A bookie sees Buck through the bars and says he'll see him inside and he'll get what's coming to him. It's an hour from the nuptials and racked with guilt, Bob confronts Cindy and says he can't go through with the wedding, not while Buck's in jail. He says, you want me, you get Buck too. Cindy thinks it over. She loves Bob and says, will he behave? Bob flees and pays out his brother's bond. Buck is free. Bob and Buck hug and Bob says, come Buck, we've got to get you in your suit. You're the best man. The wedding goes down. Cue Schmaltz's 80s music. Shanice is on Buck's arm. She says the car is ready and she wipes grease off her face. He says they'll leave tonight. He just wants to stay to the cutting of the cake. It has all gone off like a dream. Buck has been well behaved, but alas, he does knock over the cake and embarrass himself. Shit, he says, it was all going so damn well. Buck and Shanice wave goodbye to the newlyweds. There are some nice family moments. Buck and Shanice get in the car. Smoke oozes from the exhaust and the car makes a whistling noise. The wedding guests all watch in horror as a backfire coats them all in black soot. I thought you fixed it, he asks Shanice. I can't even fix you, she says. They leave in a hurry. Graphic, 9 months later. Bob is rushing a very pregnant Cindy to his car. It won't start. Out of options, Bob rings Buck, who turns up, and they pile into his wagon, which is now devoid of shocks. They get Cindy to the hospital in time. Baby Tia is born. Buck looks in through the maternity window with a big smile on his face. Bob says, looks like you're an uncle now, Buck. Bob walks away. Cue tone lock, wild thing. Buck pulls a pulls a cigar from his pocket and lights it. The smoke triggers a fire alarm and everything gets soaking wet. The end.
That's
good.
That was good.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, this happened when we did Goonies. I like that better than the real movie.
Yeah, it's
like
good.
when you did Goonies, remember how I said I was like, I like your story better than the Goonies?
Yeah,
I
well-
like this story better than and what I was thinking, you could call it Buck's Night.
I was going to say Buck's Night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I just think Buck, because he's not an uncle. So the whole reference
that is
him
really nice.
becoming
I
an
do
uncle
like
at the
that.
end
And then
of
he
it.
gets the
Yeah.
Would you put an apostrophe?
And that's a really nice.
The Bucks thing, thing's just the jokes, as Bucks do. Like, you know, but I think,
but that's I really like that, and I like the fact that he's like earned the title of uncle by the end.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
which then leads into the next film, and
That's
the
really
jokes
nice.
all code in
it's
there.
a really nice. It's like, and you've done this before, which I really appreciate, which is you give us what we would like and what we expect from
You hit those
the
notes.
the stereotypes that we're expecting from this genre and from the thing. But then you give us stuff that we wouldn't expect, so we get this nice combo of like exactly what these movies are for, which are providing comfort but also surprise.
Yeah.
That's nice.
I tried to stick to. I tried to also stick, even though there's things like getting arrested and going to prison. There's the wedding coming up and that's forced upon them. There's the just like brother. I tried to stick to a very 80s scope when I looked at this.
for sure.
Yes.
Well,
So,
you've used a lot of those tropes, like in interesting ways, and like it lands, and you're like, that would happen. Yeah, okay,
and that's kind of what when I wrote. I was like, I'm going to try and write an 80s film.
Yeah.
So that's why it's all in there. Plus, I wanted to have an origins film for the car, because the car to me is just such a big. So we crash in the car and it goes to shit and all that, and at the end it blows up, and he's like, "Well, did you fix that?" I thought you fixed it, which is the origin of the car.
Yeah. And
so
he still got it.
Still got it, and there's all the fan service there.
Yeah.
There's the cigar at the
And
end.
I do
there's
like-
the
yeah,
Which is
like- I
perfect
like-
for a baby being
Yeah,
born.
Like
that's
the
right,
way-
yeah.
That's the thing as well. I like the way you undercut all the drama, sentimental moments with those comedy moments that kind of show, oh, he's still the same Buck, but it doesn't undermine those moments. It just kind of goes, well, it's still okay. It just isn't perfect.
Yeah.
It's still okay. It just is kind of embarrassing. It's
Yeah.
like it doesn't ruin the goodness that he's set up. Like, and that's a really, I think that's quite a tricky thing to manage in these kind of stories where you've got a character that everybody loves to hate and hates to love, like that kind of thing.
And we haven't seen a younger Buck, so
No.
we've obviously seen
Yeah.
Buck when he's Uncle Buck and he's older, and I kind of feel like this is Buck's sort of early 30s.
Yeah.
Still being, and it's probably starting off his road of being bad at gambling, still
Yes.
probably just
And
met
a
Shanice.
little, like worse at that point.
Yeah.
Youth being
Bit more wayward
you can get up
and
to no
Yeah.
good.
And it's those things of like, there's those films that you always have where someone's trying to keep a secret for someone, and all of a sudden that person turns up to their house,
Yeah.
and they're trying to like juggle it and go, well, if he's out by Friday, then, and it keeps getting worse and worse and worse, and that's kind of what I wanted to create. He doesn't know it's coming, and Bob's trying to keep quiet about it.
One of the quintessential 80s moments for me was when basically they have a shitty ceiling, so they're in bed and just all the poo dribbles through the
And
ceiling.
it's probably been
and you can
done,
see them,
but-
they're looking up, like, and maybe they've just
What
started to
is
kiss or
that
something, and they look up
smell?
and there's like just drizzling, and they're like, is it raining? And then they realise that it's like yellow or something,
Yeah.
and it just like builds into
You
this
could just
kind of-
imagine him out there with a plunger, like trying to like fix the toilet because he's busted
And the
it.
DVD cover is him holding a plunger
That's right, yeah.
with a wedding
You could
tuxedo.
even have him make a comment about eating a lot of cheese at the moment.
Yeah.
Something like that. He's like, sorry, I've just really been having a crazy
Yes,
cheese.
you could- yes,
I
you could
love
reference the
Like,
cheese
you can
in
do
there.
little things like that.
But also, it's just about. I mean, I obviously didn't write a lot of gags. I
Take
just
the
threw them in
plunge.
there. But take the plunge.
Take the plunge.
But I think I wanted to work on the relationship
like
with
a
Wedding
tagline.
and
Take the
why he was disliked by
Oh my gosh,
Cindy.
that's the poster.
Yeah,
the
take the
poster
plunge.
is so.
No,
on
they're
this-
barging in the bedroom.
But like, and he's
he's got
like
a plunge.
he's unplugging the toilet, and he's trying to carry her across
Yeah.
the threshold in a wedding dress.
They're
And he's
finally
like,
taking the plunge.
that's great.
And he's like unplugging the toilet, going,
Yep.
"Just wait, it'll be just a second."
So, and the one thing that I like I said when I jokingly pointed out was that they weren't in the same bed, and then when Buck turned up, they were forced into the same bed, and then they obviously had sex.
Yeah.
And then it's 9 months later we get Tia as a result of
That's
Buck
good.
being there.
Yeah.
See, that's
It's really
clever
pushed
writing,
them into
people.
That's good writing, Ryan. I like it.
Oh, that's just me blowing smoke up my own ass.
No, that's
Right.
good. That's good.
I
Putting in
like-
those links.
Because, when
Very
we do
nice.
these things, we talk about layers, and we know what our mate on the other side of the table,
Well,
Christian's like saying
I do want to
always.
ask you about that. So to me, that's
why I was jokingly
That's
doing
the moving parts that you're talking
Yes.
about. When I say layers, what I'm talking about is the deeper philosophies behind the behaviours and
He's
actions
going way
of the
deep
characters.
here.
Yeah.
To me, that's not that deep. Like it's when like
I'm a plate spinner, that's all. I like to
yes,
spin
and
plates.
I really like that. So like to me, the layers in this would be something you could do. I can't recall if you did this at the beginning, but something you could do is in the way at the end he got the name of Uncle Buck, and he says, "Looks like you're going to be an uncle."
Yeah.
At the beginning, if Buck had some kind of conversation where he was like, "Oh, I wish I had some kind of like, could I be like Lieutenant Buck, or like, and he's trying out different, like...
I don't have a title. I've never had a title.
Right, I've never had a title. And then, like, it kind of gets pointed out to him. It's like, well, you never earned it. Like...
You don't
and
just
he's like,
get a title.
Oh, and like, he was just mucking around. He was just joking. And then he kind of goes, oh, and he feels kind of shit about it. And then by the end, he's been given a title. And it doesn't just mean uncle. It's like... No, you mean something to somebody now.
Well, he could joke. He could even make a joke with him, and
that's what I'm talking about with layers. So,
yeah, but he could joke with Cindy and Bob and say, you know, like, oh, well, I'll be an uncle one day, and they'll kind of like, oh, we wouldn't really want you, as like, have Cindy make a sort of like,
and that's nice. But to me, you have to be careful because then it will become too obvious. And then when he says, "Looks like your uncle," he's giving Buck exactly what he asked for. Whereas if Buck with Shanice talks about something like that, and then without any prompting, the dad says, oh, it looks like you're going to be an uncle. And Buck just goes, mm-hmm. Like, and he's like, oh, that's much nicer than I expected. And it harks back to...
I don't have him crying. I have him lighting a cigar and being very happy about it.
He wouldn't cry. I know,
very smart.
But, you know what I mean? So that was just a random example of, like, that's... I think that's when it's just absolutely beautiful, is when basically the more layers of kind of meaning you can add to any kind of moment, kind of the better.
Yeah.
Like, all of my favourite films, and the reason I like your pitch is because there's moments where that's what it's doing, where the audience isn't just going, oh, what I see on screen is exactly what's happening. They're going, oh, what I see on screen is this, but underneath that, he's really loving, like, the gratitude he's feeling right now, or the confusion or the pain or whatever is happening underneath this. Like, that's...
Yeah.
And but that was,
right.
that was great.
All right,
really
well,
cool.
then I think it should
Coming
be
from
Jane
a big
next,
fan,
I think.
maybe
because,
some similarities.
well, I reckon that's probably a good thing if we write. I know Christian's usually goes last, but I think because yours has got a similar tonality
It
to mine,
has,
it might
yeah.
work if we
Yeah,
go wedding to wedding. I reckon you're on a
for
wedding.
sure.
And it starts at a similar...
Cool.
It comes from the photo
Oh,
moment,
I'm
because
really
that's
interested
one of
to
my
hear this.
favourite...
That's funny that we both picked up the same spot.
Yeah.
It's not as direct from that point, but that is the moment in the film where I really feel sorry for
at the end of it, if you could just comment on why you guys picked that, that would be really interesting.
Yep.
Just see how
and it's a prequel, so...
Yeah, which is cool as well.
Yeah.
It's called Buck and Bobby. So similar again in a way that we're stripping back the... Okay, it's quite short, but let's do this.
do it.
Let's go way back to when Buck wasn't even an uncle yet. When Buck and his younger brother Bobby were only 10 and the kings of their street. If anyone wanted to help putting together a prank, Buck and Bobby would take full charge of the plan and supply all the necessary equipment. If any other kid on the street wanted to get up to mischief, whether it be to skip school, swipe bourbon from their parents' liquor cabinet, or bet all their hard-earned allowance on a horse race, they'd go to Buck and Bobby. Buck and Bobby were untouchable. Even their own parents were fooled by their cheeky charm and overlooked many punishable stunts. Buck was the boss, and his younger brother Bobby was always happy to take Buck's lead on anything and everything. If Buck told Bobby to jump off a cliff, Bobby would jump off willingly. If Buck wanted to take out their parents' car without a license, sure enough, Bobby was the one swiping the keys from the dad's back pocket while he slept. The boys did everything together, and one thing that was a given was that they had each other's backs. Once high school had finished, Bobby had gotten into a college not far out of town, and before you know it, he fell head over heels for a girl called Cindy. At first, Buck thought it was just a bit of a fling, but before long, Bobby and Cindy were inseparable. Suddenly, there was this third wheel situation happening on all of Buck and Bobby's adventures. So one night, Buck decided he wasn't having this girl come between them and his brother. Between him and his brother. It was the biggest night of the year, the horse racing season opener dance. Buck's favourite night since he could remember. Buck asked Bobby to come in early to help him set up some stuff at the dance venue. Buck then phoned Cindy to say the venue had been relocated last minute due to flooding to a racetrack out of town. Turns out, Buck just wanted to have a fun night with his brother and without Cindy taking up all Bobby's time. As expected, Cindy never showed up to the big dance, leaving Bobby devastated. Bobby then decided to drown his sorrows and partook in too many shots of tequila with Buck. The night was going well. Buck and Bobby were back to their old ways, drinking, dancing, pranking, gambling. Bobby sneaks away and tries phoning Cindy, rather drunk, but ends up leaving a very inappropriate voice message on her parents' answering machine. He called Cindy every name under the sun and said he wants nothing to do with her for standing him up. The next day, Cindy knocks on Buck's door. A very hungover Buck answers the door and lets her in reluctantly. Bobby is passed out on the kitchen floor. Buck leaves knowing he's about to be caught out for sabotaging their big night. Cindy and Bobby talk it out, realising that she was not standing Bobby up and Buck was behind the whole thing. Bobby confronts Buck and the two have a big fight. Cindy and Bobby head back to college for their final year, and after a few months, Buck comes across an announcement of Cindy and Bobby's engagement in the local newspaper. The engagement party had already been held at Cindy's parents' house, and the two are to marry later that year. I've finished it there. So it's kind of not complete. This is the idea behind it. So sorry, I'll
that's
come up
great.
with an ending, but...
Good. I like it. I like the fact that you've gone along the wedding train as well. As me, I think it's Well, I think to like I said, to move on from the film to a sequel, and that doesn't really suit. But we want to know why Cindy dislikes Buck, and I thought, well, there's the story.
Yeah.
Why doesn't she trust him? What has he done? And
she has a reason to believe he's not a stand-up kind of guy.
And it's not a one-off. He's done this shit repetitively, so we have to create that history of what he's done.
So they were friends, and she was happy to hang out with Buck, but this was the ultimate betrayal, and she saw that it changed Bobby, So she didn't think any good was going to come from it. Not that that's her call, but she didn't want anything to do with him, and naturally it dissolved the relationship between Buck and Bobby. But I think I would leave it leading in. Maybe. So
you wouldn't even get to the wedding.
Maybe I'd talk about him going in the end. But I don't know.
It could be like your last...
You could end with...
your last scene could be...
the last scene could be him
getting...
or him getting the invitation, or like he doesn't think he's going and then he gets an invitation or something.
Yeah, so I would probably...
Some kind of little prompt that suggests that he's in their life.
He's in there,
but... Bobby and Cindy are there to get married, and then Buck steps into frame. Because he's in the matching suit. So you do a little bit of work just to get the two to sort out their problems, and then you have
Buck just like, where's Buck? And then you hear a clank, and then look over and I'm here. Like, sorry.
He's looking for the ring or
and he's like
something.
eating it, and he's like, I got it. And he's just like eating a prawn.
And drops the ring, or it goes down a grate or something. Like there's plenty you can play with there.
Well, maybe he shows up for the speech and just comes out of nowhere, and that's his apology to them both.
Yes, that's good.
And they're like, and there's tears in Cindy's eyes, and he's like, I did the wrong thing, but I'm here to do the right thing. And I don't know, but I did leave it because I kept it short, and it's more of a concept. But
I think it works. I think I like the fact that you made them younger. Like you took them to 10 and then got them.
It's kind of a montage of growing up.
And then because it makes Cindy the outsider.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like in Uncle Buck, the movie Uncle Buck, Buck is the outsider.
Yeah.
But in these,
Cindy's
coming into them.
It's caused change.
Which then links nicely to the next film where she's in the power position and he's sort of on the back burner.
And something that I like about both of you guys is that both of them have added a level of kind of sadness to the Uncle Buck movie now.
Yeah.
Well,
you think about it like that, and I mean in a really lovely way. So so he has all this history, and it's like he's stuffed up a bunch, and it's kind of I don't know, adds a kind of sweetness, like a redemption. There's redemption for him in Uncle Buck now, if these are his uncles.
Well, and James is really an origin, more origin than mine. Mine's just him meeting up with his brother again. There's probably 20 other clashes where he's.
I feel like you could almost put your movie after hers.
That's right.
It would be a trilogy, the Buck trilogy.
Well, we've done it, people. We've done it. All right.
We've done it. Mine was short and sweet. Apologies.
All right. Well, we're going to have to roll on with Christian's.
So we've only got about 10 minutes. I don't think mine's going to fit into 10 minutes. Okay, I'll just try. I'll try to go really quick. Basically, Buck is a loser. He's never around for Charisse. Okay, I'll start again. Sorry. I'm rewriting the film.
Okay.
I'm just doing a reboot because I'm trying to put my money where my mouth is.
A reboot from scratch.
Yeah, so I'm trying to put my money where my mouth is, and please know that I don't expect to be able to criticise a film without coming up with ideas for it.
Sure.
And I doubt that this will suffice. It's not going to be enough. But please know that I will either continue to work on it until I feel like I've got something that I can be proud of, because I do believe that it's possible. So then I kind of can justify my criticisms, because I don't think it's fair to just criticise and then walk off. So anyway, so it's taking a lot of the concepts of the film and just trying to tighten them up, basically. So Buck's a loser. He tells he's never there. He's never at work when he says he's going to be. He's always gambling and things. And then Charisse basically says, "You're never around. You're like a shadow. And if you keep doing this, I'm just scared you're not going to be there where I really need you. You're not going to. When I call, you're not going to answer." And he says, look, no, when it really matters, when you call, I'll be there. Well, then we get to the family, and they've got all their shit going on.
What family are we talking about?
So then we go to... I'm just going to have to think of it. So then we go to Tia and the family. Tia resents her parents because she's looking after the kids, and they've just found out their granddad has had a heart attack, and they're going to go away. She resents the fact that she can't go with them. She says, I'll look after the kids, and they say, no, you're not responsible enough, you're not mature enough, you can't do it. She doesn't like that. And then they get Uncle Buck. They say, we're going to get Uncle Buck. And the kids go, is that uncle that we remember being, like, really crap? Like, what, is that him? And the dad's like, oh, no, that's not him. This is a different... You're thinking of a different uncle. And they're like, what did we call him? We had a nickname for him. We had, like, the whole family kind of made fun of him. And they're like, no, it wasn't him. It wasn't that guy. And then Uncle Buck comes along, and Uncle Buck has trouble, as he does in the real film, with Tia, and they struggle to get along. And then she says something along the lines of, men are shadows, and we can't rely on them, and they all suck. And so Buck, one of the first things Buck tells Tia about is he's like, okay, I know, like... I can sense that you're, like, resenting this. Look, I'm just going to be a mate. I'm not going to try to be a parent. I'm just going to be a mate. But I'm kind of having troubles with my girlfriend. If you could help me out, I'd really appreciate it. So if she calls, let me know. And then sometime around, like, he's mucking around. He's doing funny things with the kids, getting along with them pretty well. And Charisse calls and Tia answers. And then Charisse says, Buck is expecting my call. I need his help right now. Is he available? And then Tia says, like, she makes up a lie about him being irresponsible and he's not available. And then Buck asks if that was Charisse and things, and Tia basically says, oh yeah, it was her, but she never thinks... She's basically said something along the lines of, I don't really think he's ever going to change, and she doesn't want anything to do with you because you're never going to change. And then kind of Buck gets it into his head. He's like, no, I can prove that I can change. And then so he takes care of the kids, he's doing really well, but he's being their friend. He's not being as responsible as he needs to. He's skipping out on them to go do some gambling and making Tia look after them and things like that. But when he's by himself, when he comes back to Tia, he's like, oh, just want to let you know, thanks so much. If, I'm doing all this I really want to impress Charisse, and I feel like it's going to be really good. And Tia's kind of gradually starting to feel guilty that she lied to him, but she's like, oh, well, if you're my friend, I can go out, right? Like, we're buddies, so I'm just going to go out. And he's like, oh, yeah, I suppose. Like, do you reckon Charisse would like that? And she's like, yeah, I reckon she'd be really impressed. So I can go out, I can drink, and I got my boyfriend, it's all cool, right? And he's like, oh, be careful with your... And she's like, yeah, no, I'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Thanks for being a good pal. And then he's doing really well, and he has, like, the kid's birthday party, and then he hires a clown, and the clown who turns up turns out to be one of his old gambling buddies, and the clown's like, look, I'm not going to do a good job here unless you sort out my debts for me and help me with some gambling shit. And then Buck's like, I don't have any money, but my nephew actually just got a bunch of money for his birthday, so I'm just going to... You keep entertaining them. And then he uses Miles's birthday money that he got from his mates to spend on the races, and then the clown's like, cool. The clown makes sure it's a really good party. The party goes excellently. They love him, and they're like, wow, Buck, you're the greatest. This is so great. Meanwhile, Tia's off somewhere having the fun that she wants to have. And then it all kind of comes crashing down when the money doesn't come through. Like, so the gambling doesn't work. It's not successful. The race sucks, and the money doesn't come through, and Buck he doesn't know how to admit to the kids that he's stuffed up. Something happens where Buck makes Tia feel really embarrassed and shitty, and she gets angry at him, and then so Buck and the kids have a really good time, and Tia wants her revenge, and she feels guilty, but she wants revenge, so she says, your uncle suck. And he's like, what? and she's like, do you kids remember Uncle? And they're like, oh, is that his name? Yeah, Uncle Suck. He was the guy who did this and this and this. That wasn't you, was it? And Tia's like, yeah, it was him. And then they realise that this crappy uncle that they used to have, that they all were like, really? Your uncle, oh, we hate, really? And they realise that he's Uncle Suck. And then he feels terrible, and he's like, is that what you guys called me? And the kids are like, yeah, Mum and Dad call you that all the time. Like, they make fun of you all the time. Was that you? Oh, that's embarrassing. Yes, that's embarrassing. You're a bit crap. And then, so Tia's kind of riding high on that, and then she's out with her mates, and then she gets in the shit, and Buck is feeling awful. He contacts Shanice and says, oh, hey, Shanice, I really need your help. I know you've kind of been waiting for me to prove this stuff, but I've kind of stuffed up. I've been working really hard, blah, blah, blah. Can you help me? And she's like, what are you talking about? I never said I was going to take you back. I don't want you, and it sounds like you're just getting worse. No thanks. And then he's like, oh, shit, everything's awful. I've let down everybody. Everything's ruined. How am I going to pay off this debt? How am I going to admit to these kids that I spent all their money? And then he gets a call, and we know that it's Tia. She's ringing because something horrible's happened, but the phone just rings. And we're like, what's he doing? Like, he's not... And then he rushes to the phone and picks up and says, Buck, and then you don't hear the conversation, and he goes, okay. And then he's just off, and he goes to Tia, and he saves her, and he protects her, and he rescues her. And, like, he's, like, a mess at this point, but he rescues her and saves her. My alarm!
Oh!
He rescues her and he saves her, and then they have their rejoining, and she kind of goes, oh, look, I made up this lie, and I'm really sorry. I just didn't like the fact that my parents were undermining me. Nobody believes I'm way more grown up than people think. And she goes, but now I've realised that maybe I don't know everything because my boyfriend was a jerk, and thank you so much for saving me. And he's like, yeah, no worries. I'm really sorry for all the shit that I've done, but I still don't know how I'm going to fix this. And then she decides to help him. And then they basically tidy up the house. She helps him figure out another way, I don't know, how to get the money back, give it back to Miles before he realises that's what he's done. And then she maybe goes to the kids and says, oh yeah, this wasn't Uncle Suck. Like, I made a mistake. And they're like, yeah, of course you weren't. You're awesome. You do this and you do this and we love you. You're great. And he's like, oh, thank you so much. And then he and Tia have this beautiful moment. And then the parents get home and then they're like, wow, you seemed like you did really well and everything worked out, right, Buck? And he's like, yeah, everything worked out. Like, he's still really sad because obviously Charisse doesn't love him. And then the phone rings and Mum or Dad go to answer it and Tia goes, oh, no, I think that might be for you, Uncle Buck, UB, or whatever she calls him, UB. And then he picks up and it's Charisse and he goes, hello, and she goes, oh, you answered. And he's like, yeah, of course, I'll always answer, kind of thing. And then it turns out that she's outside on her, like, 90s, 80s mobile phone in the car or something.
The music playing in the background.
And the music plays in the background. He's like, oh my gosh, she's right there. And then he looks at Tia and she's like, gives him like a wink. She's like, I organised this. Yeah, she's cool. And then, yeah, that's kind of the end. And they celebrate and that's kind of the end. Thank you for letting me do that. Shit, that was hard.
He did very well.
So I just had to
very well
pull it together. There's a few holes there in terms of Tia's motivation and stuff. But like you can see those.
You can always.
I'm basically trying to put my money where my mouth is. Just those few moments that I would love to have seen in the film that would make me just love Uncle Buck. Because how horrible would it be if he used the kids' pocket money and burnt their money to go gambling?
So you need a little bit of
horrible
a little bit of bad.
Exactly
to get
right.
To the good.
Because then he goes, I'm really screwed, and then Tia, and then so it's very similar to the real thing. You can see how my story is very similar, but I just push the elements a bit harder in different directions.
But do you see kind of the idea that where the comedy would be? Like, I mean, are you going to have the same sort of comedy that's in the original?
Of course, I think it all works. I think it all still. I think it would all still work.
I've got Santa coming into play here, so that would be the
So as far as I can see, all of the comedy stuff can still work. I don't... obviously, I'm kind of abandoning the Marie thing a little bit, but I think you could still chuck that in there, still have that as something that it sets up. But I just feel like Tia lying about that needs to be better set up. And the one letdown of mine, where I didn't put my money where my mouth is I don't think I gave Tia enough... There's like a quarter of her story missing in there that I need to keep working on. Where like that gives her that before she goes out for that last time. But I just really like this idea that she sets up the lie, and he's like, oh yeah, great, I want to do a good job, so okay. And he's kind of innocent and kind of sweet in that, but he's also kind of a jerk, but he's sweet and innocent and vulnerable in one way. I don't know, I just kind of yes. But anyway, that pretty much brings us to time.
It's an interesting reboot.
Holy shit.
That was a super fast pitch. That was like an elevator pitch.
Yeah, so I apologise.
No,
and hopefully that was
time.
I might edit that down so there's not as many ums and ahs, because that probably is frustrating.
That's pretty time.
You can play a drinking game with it. Every time he says take a shot.
Take a drink.
You might be well and truly leathered.
2 prequels and a reboot.
Yeah,
And I don't think we've done a reboot, and I don't think we've done prequels.
No, I don't think I've...
Oh, we did big...
We've definitely haven't done any prequels to...
Breakfast Club was all sequels, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
You're right,
and a spin-off. Like, I did a one-character spin-off.
I've seen character spin-offs. We
definitely haven't... But see, this movie, like you said, it does not lend itself to a sequel, I don't think. Like, that feels very much like...
Yeah.
That's why I think they did a sitcom series.
Unless Uncle Buck comes back for Tia's marriage.
Someone dies.
Maybe it's like Great Uncle Buck.
John Candy, go back to the 80s. You've written this way, Uncle Buck this way?
I think so. Good. I can definitely see...
he would have been your guy to go there for that character.
He can capture... And it's like, if he was more... Oh, no, he wouldn't have to be. But my favourite character that I've seen him play is... probably Planes Trains guy, or the
Home Alone character.
The Home Alone character,
Neil. What is
which
he
is
called?
very close.
Del Griffith.
Because in that he is irritating as shit. Like, he's a really irritating guy, but he's also, you feel so bad for him. Like there's that moment towards the end where
you always feel bad for John Candy.
It's so sweet, you know. There's you can see both sides of him and how he's struggling with the two sides of his character.
Except you feel sorry for Roman, which is Dan Aykroyd in The Great Outdoors.
Yes.
John Candy
I need to see that. That's another one I haven't seen.
You will hate that one. You hate this one because it's more cheese and it's really crazy and it's funny and it's zany and the bear and all that. But look, I think that just to wrap it, I think that John Candy was never as good as he was unless he was in a John Hughes film.
Yeah,
and I'll throw that out
maximised him.
straight away because
Yeah.
I think if you...
was a
His
lovely-
career, as we spoke about before, was very hit and miss. There's a lot of films of his that I've watched and I just go, oh, they're just awful. Like even like Harry Crumb, like who's killing Harry Crumb? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I know
yeah.
about that.
It's all right, but then you've got films like Delirious, which was awful, and
Yeah.
Only the Lonely, and there's a couple in there that are just awful that he was
They've got
involved with.
moments, but not enough.
Wagons East
Not
and all
enough.
that, the one that he died during. There's a
Oh,
lot of really
yeah.
terrible.
I remember being,
Cool
I
Runnings
remember
was
quite
good,
liking,
but he wasn't the main
I
character.
think
in
Cool Runnings is my favourite movie that he's in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
actually, yes.
once again, Home
Cool
Alone.
Runnings is
We didn't
funny,
talk
and I
about
like
that.
him in that. I like him.
But
in
I think
Yeah.
that we
forgot about that.
I
Yeah,
think we
that's
lost
one of the things,
lost
yeah.
a treasure at that age
Yeah.
because I think he was 47 when he died,
Wow.
Yeah,
and I just loved him as
Yeah.
a comic actor.
Yeah.
His timing was just amazing. You know he's ad-libbing a lot in that scene in
Yeah,
Uncle
yeah,
Buck. You know
yeah.
it's all coming from Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he's working with other actors, you can see that he obviously would be the most giving and funny
He's a
person to be
gentle,
acting
Like
with.
with
you know,
Macaulay and
character.
stuff. Like
Yeah,
this,
but
that's
even with
some
Dan
really
Aykroyd in
nice-
scenes and other people,
Yeah.
he plays the scene so well.
Yeah.
And I think is a huge loss. But I think in his honour and his testimony is films like Uncle Buck and that because they still stand up, and it's still a film that with my family, as we talk about nostalgia, and I
Yeah.
passed on to my girls,
Yeah.
we all watch it probably once or twice a year.
Yeah.
It's one of those films that you put on and you don't have to think too much about. You get your
Yeah.
popcorn heated up,
Yep.
you get your beanbags out,
Yeah.
and you all laugh through it. And if you're going to roll the double, I suggest you just go and grab Planes, Trains and stick it straight in the
Totally,
DVD
yeah.
player
Yeah,
after
nice.
it, or do them alternate. Probably do Uncle Buck first and then do Planes, Trains.
What would be your two candy films that you double bill?
Well, maybe Cool Runnings.
Oh, that's okay.
Because
Yeah,
I
Cool
go
Runnings,
Planes,
'cause I'd like-
Trains, and Cool Runnings.
I'd like to sit with my child and watch Cool Runnings.
Yeah.
So we haven't done that yet. So
Yeah.
Uncle Buck, the cigar is a problem.
Yeah.
For me?
I feel like you have to
Come
wait till he's
No,
a little bit
he's
older.
too
for
little.
the
When
Uncle
he's
Buck.
bigger.
And the whole you're going to take my whole load and you're going to like it. I was
Yeah,
like,
that-
whoa,
That's just dialogue. That's just
It's like,
dialogue.
it's
But he
like
was just being
Shove my
you
load
window.
into you whether you like it or not.
It's like holy crap!
I just love that.
Jesus.
and
Oh,
his-
you're talking dirty to him
His
there. huh?
realisation when his face
So
when
he
he
pulls the
realises.
he pulls the curtain thing across. He's all sweaty. Oh, so good. Anyway, we have to wind
We
up.
do
with
have
that.
to wind up, so
Yeah.
that is
Sorry
it.
for the rain.
Yeah, sorry for the rain,
Sorry.
guys. Hopefully, it's not too much of a niggling sound issue, but
Yeah.
Not too bad.
you know, otherwise it's been fantastic. Thank you so much for hosting
Thank you
the,
very
No
much.
the
worries.
Pitching In podcast in your nerd cave.
My nerd cave.
Ryan, absolutely
pictures.
fantastic. Thank
Yes,
you so
enjoyed
much.
all
Yes,
pictures.
and thank you both to you as ever, Ryan Wisdom and Jane Raitt, for being awesome guests. Thank you so much for letting me criticize a film that you love.
Thank you to you, son.
Because I really
Real
appreciate
piece
it.
of work.
4.5 is what he gave us.
I'm
mate.
so
All right,
sorry.
you know what? And you know what I've got to say
terrible.
about
Don't
that?
apologise.
I feel
It's
so terrible.
okay.
Yeah, like the amount of times
His
I've, like,
hand was
wrung
shaking when he wrote
the amount
that
of times
number
I've like
down.
wrung my hands and just like squirmed in my chair today has been massive.
Jane and I just went, right,
Oh,
10,
I'm so
9.5, deal with
it's
it.
been-
Go
it's
as low
been
as you can.
locker.
It's still got an 8.
We
It's
brought
one of
him
the
up to 8,
higher-
that's what I
it's
mean.
one of the
We
highest
railroaded
scores.
him.
We've had conversation in
Yes.
front of the work lockers about what's Sonic going to say.
We did. We were scared.
Oh, I'm so
I knew
sorry.
he'd hate it. I just like, he's not
I
going to
didn't
like
hate
this.
it. I don't really hate
You gave it
anything.
4.5. Anyway, moving
I
on.
just didn't. Well, anyway, thank you so much to you guys, and thank you for everyone for listening to
Yes.
this episode of Pitching In. If you'd like to check out more episodes, please go to iTunes, Facebook, and Podbean. You can like and subscribe on the various aspects of those ones. I'm Christian Barrett, and until next time, remember that kindness can be critical. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
See you later.